What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Stochastic DFS channel. And today I'm here to talk about some college football DFS ahead of the Week 4 Friday night slate. It's 4 games. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you by PrizePicks. They have a first match deposit bonus up to $100, and they have every sport you could possibly imagine, it seems like. All the major ones, MLB, NFL, NBA will be back before you know it. They also have college football. I'm doing a video for that every single Friday. And we have player projections on the back end that can help you take advantage of some of these props that PrizePicks has listed. But even more important, it's not just the $100 match deposit bonus they're giving you. You're also getting 1 free month of Odd Shopper, which is going to help you search all these lines, take a look at some player props, and help you make the best decisions possible in these markets. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 to play. All right, let's dive into the 4-game slate. We are going to start things off behind the glass with Wisconsin and Purdue. This is our data usage tool. It's also available over at Stochastic as part of the college football package. Ownership, regular projections, these tools all available for you if you'd like to take a look. Wisconsin is a 6-point favorite here, 5 in some spots. We have a 53.5 total. As you can see, this has changed through 6. There we go, updated now. But right away, this game should have pretty good pace, pretty good passing on both sides. 2 top 45 offenses in terms of pace, both teams passing around 50% of the time. Wisconsin probably a little pass friendlier than they want to be. Just that Washington State game threw a wrench into things. They had to throw a lot against Georgia Southern too, honestly. But we start things off with Tanner Mordecai. He's not run as much as he did back with SMU. His passing efficiency has also left a lot to be desired. He's throwing the ball nearly 34 times per game, but only 233 yards through the air. Some of that the fault of his receivers. We've seen guys like Skylar Bell drop long passes for this team, Jameer Dike. Mordecai probably has better days ahead, and I don't exactly fear the Purdue pass defense. I also think this could be a sneaky shootout. So Mordecai's not a guy I'm going to X out. I've been higher on the field on Mordecai every single time he's been on the slate and gotten burned repeatedly. Definitely not Xing him out here. He's a guy I'll definitely look to for leverage. In the backfield, Chez Mellusi and Braylon Allen basically forming a 50-50 committee. Braylon Allen's the pass-catching back, but with that said, I still think the gap here is too wide in terms of pricing. Braylon Allen at 7,900, Chez Mellusi at 6K. Allen has more touches, 52 to 42. He also has a 48% route share, and he leads the team in targets, bafflingly. But Chez Mellusi's outcarried him 40 to 36. When Wisconsin's controlling games, Chez has played more. I mean, Chez has outcarried Braylon in 2 of the 3 games so far this year. Efficiency is actually pretty even between these guys, so it's not like Braylon's deserving of more opportunity in the run game. Chez very much deserves to be involved. Honestly, I think Chez is probably a better price-adjusted play. Braylon's safer with the pass-catching floor, but I'll be mixing and matching both of these guys. There's not a lot of good running back plays. It's hard to say I'll be light on Braylon. I'm not sure. Pass game, extremely difficult to parse this out. Wisconsin's using 5 guys: Skylar Bell, Bryson Green, Will Pauling, Jameer Dike, CJ Williams. Skylar Bell actually is second on the team in targets. He's tied with Bryson Green at 15. Skylar Bell is 3,500. He's had exactly 5 targets every game. He's probably the best price-adjusted play. His route tree has also risen pretty substantially too. He was only about 40% of the routes to start the year. He's up above 60%. We have a long history of Fickle and these offenses he's been a part of running rotations, so I don't necessarily think this is sticky. But Skylar Bell's particularly interesting. The most efficient guy's been DK. Pauling's been second. I would rank those 2 guys second and third price adjusted. And then lastly, you want to take a shot on the Stoneman guy. CJ Williams has seen his route share rise as well. This is the USC transfer, the really high recruit. CJ Williams' his route shares have been 46%, 41%, 56% in the last game. Again, just to recap, DK and Pauling on the field the most. Pauling actually 35% route rate last game is concerning. I don't know if there's an injury or something, but Skylar Bell up at 65%. He's the best price-adjusted play. On the Purdue side, Hudson Card, he'll be playing quarterback here. We still have an air raid offense with Purdue. Graham Harrell comes in, 37 pass attempts per game. He's averaging 274 yards. Purdue's been in a couple dogfights this year in terms of their games. Card doesn't give you a ton of mobility here, but he does play a style of football in an offense that's conducive to some backdoor 300-yard games. Wisconsin's defense definitely doesn't scare you, and Georgia Southern beat up on this team through the air. The weakness is their coverage. So Hudson Card firmly in play at 6,300. Better price-adjusted play than Mordecai at 87. Mordecai is just a little too expensive for this slate, even though I won't be fading him. Backfield. Saw some concerns with Devin Maccabee. He's not the pass-catching back. Tyrone Tracy played a ton in their last game, was only out-carried by Maccabee 12-10. In the target department, we saw Maccabee 4 targets to Tyrone Tracy's 3, but routes, they've condensed here. Maccabee not the bell cow back we thought he was, and this makes sense. Maccabee is a former walk-on. He has a questionable talent profile. Tyrone Tracy is a former receiver playing running back. They had the identical amount of routes, both at 32% last game. I think this timeshare is probably here to stay. Not interested in Maccabee at this price outside of just wild tournaments. The receiving game is very clear. We have 3 receivers playing almost every snap in Abdur Rahman Yassin, Deion Burks, and TJ Sheffield. Targets favor Abdur Rahman Yassin. The efficiency is almost identical between him and Burks. Burks is a little cheaper, but honestly, I'm going to play one of these guys in most lineups, and I'll be trying to stack card quite a bit with these two. I think Abdur Rahman Yassin is probably going to offer a little more leverage. Burks had just that explosive week 1 game that people remember. Tight end Max Clare, 81% route share, definitely involved. He's 3rd on the team in targets. And TJ Sheffield comes in 4th, but they're very rarely rotating a wide receiver 4 or a second tight end. You can play any of these guys. I still think Abdur Rahman Yassin is the best overall price-adjusted play among the 4. They're very narrow in terms of pricing. Next game, we move to NC State taking on Virginia. 9.5-point spread in favor of NC State, 47.5 total. One thing you'll notice is none of the totals are particularly high. That Wisconsin-Purdue one paces the slate here. But NC State, very high implied team total in the context of this card. Brennan Armstrong, the former Virginia quarterback, the former OC, Robert Anae, now with NC State as well, basically take the Virginia offense, move it over to NC State 2 years later. But Armstrong's been running a ton, mainly for his life. He has 18 designed rush attempts, but 17 scrambles. Holy smokes. What I will say is when he's pressured, he's getting out of it and running away from it. And it's leading to a very good floor for Armstrong. This slate isn't particularly tight in terms of pricing. Armstrong has the highest raw projection on the slate at quarterback. So I think he's going to be pretty owned here. You can stack him. They pass over 50% of the time. They're fast, 34th in pace. Armstrong, I think, is the best floor ceiling combo of any signal caller. You're playing cash games, I would prioritize getting him. He's pretty easy to afford. The backfield, I don't know what they're doing. Jordan Houston started the year as the lead back. Then they listed him in a committee with Michael Allen. Only Michael Allen ranks 5th on the team in carries, even behind Brennan Armstrong. They've used Delbert Mims a lot. And then Kendrick Raphael, I believe he's a freshman, came into their last game and had 16 carries. Wasn't a competitive game, but honestly, the score was closer than I thought. And Raphael looked good. So does he actually factor into this backfield a little more? I'm not sure. And it's not like we're getting one of these guys at $3K. Raphael's the cheapest at $4,700. Jordan Houston, $6,400. He hasn't had double-digit touches in 2 straight weeks. Delbert Mims is $5,700. Same thing. Michael Allen, I mean, his career, his high this season is 7 carries. He's $5,900. This backfield's a mess, and I think it's a good matchup. Like, Virginia doesn't scare you on defense, 4.9 yards per carry allowed, but predicting who is getting the opportunities here is dicey. I think the best bet is Jordan Houston, and I don't feel good about it. I will be lighter to these guys than some other situations. Receiving game is the exact opposite. Kevin Conception, he is very clearly the wide receiver 1 in this offense, and really the only guy with a locked-in route share for this team. Everybody else kind of rotating. Conception, 78% of the routes last week. He's been at least at 74% each of the 3 games. The number 2 is Keon Lassane, in my opinion. His route shares have been 68%, 60%, and 86%. So a little more volatile than Conception, but he's on the field a lot. He trails Porter Rooks by 1 target here. Like, it's very clearly Conception and then everybody else. I would rank Lassane second. It's not a big enough gap where I'm prioritizing Lassane. I'd rather just find the 500 to get to Conception. And beyond that, like, holy smokes, man, this is a disaster. Last game, Porter Rooks, 39% of the routes. Julian Gray, 33%. Juice Vereen, 28%. Terrell Timmons, 36%. Bradley Rosner, 39%. And the problem is this has been pretty consistent over multiple games. So you can't just go and look at the opponent and say, all right, maybe they will condense this in more competitive games. They played Notre Dame. Kind of close. Almost the same thing. Just like routes all over the place. So maybe you can throw a dart on the cheap guys here. The problem is none of them are really cheap. Like Bradley Rosner, 3,700 is as cheap as you can go, I think. I have no interest in Dakari Collins or the tight ends. They're not even using a tight end on every play. Really, really dicey with NC State. I'll be focusing my attention on Conception and Keon Lassane. Virginia, tricky team here. I don't know who starts. Last week, Tony Muskett allegedly was going to start, and then Colandrea starts randomly. This week, Muskett is returning to practice, I guess. Not a clear starter again. Virginia playing mind games with Tony Elliott, even though they're not in position to play mind games. People don't care who starts at quarterback for this team. They're going to lose anyway. I hope Colandrea starts again. He's more mobile than Muskett. He's been more electric than Muskett. Like yards per attempt, favor Colandrea. He's just young. He makes a lot of mistakes, but that's better for DFS anyway. You get like a pick six or something for him. It kind of opens the offense to more production. I hope they start him. If it's clear, I will play some. If it's not clear, I'm going to X out the Virginia quarterback situation. There's a lot of downside to gamble on something like that. Backfield's a complete mess. They're using 4 guys now. Jack Greasy got involved to complement Kobe Pace, Mike Hollins, Paris Jones. No real issues, or no real, I think, keys to this. I just don't want any of it. If I'm playing any of them, it's probably going to be Mike Hollins because he has the biggest route share, but I'm going to pass. The receiving room is very narrow, and this is a spot I love targeting. Malachi Fields is the better price-adjusted play, just 1-for-1. He's been a little less explosive than Malik Washington, but targets favor him. Price is cheaper. They have the same route share. They're going to play every single snap. I'm going to play one or the other in most lineups. They lost their wide receiver 3, Demick Starling. He only had 2 targets on the year, but he was very clearly their 3 in terms of routes run. So now we're kind of left to read the tea leaves and try to figure out who the wide receiver 3 is for Virginia, because it is a pass-heavy team. I think most likely this is going to be some combination of J.R. Wilson and Jaden Gibson. Don't feel super confident in this, but I'm going to side tentatively with Gibson, then Wilson. I think both are worth darts. But honestly, where you just might want to go is the tight end position. Sackett Wood has returned, and route share was awesome for him last game, up above 65%. 2 targets leaves a lot to be desired, but he's 3,300. I think Sackett Wood firmly in play as a punt option. Next game, we've got Boise State taking on San Diego State, 45.5 total, and a 7-point spread in favor of Boise on the road. You're going to see a lot of quarterback value in this game in terms of projections. I think Taylon Green is the more volatile option with the bigger ceiling. They're favorites, so that leads to more touchdown opportunities. But the coaching staff has neutered Taylon Green. They're not using him as a designed runner. He has 8 designed rushing attempts all year, which is atrocious for a quarterback that has a 6-yard per carry average in his career. So nothing against Green. They're just not using him correctly. From a pass game perspective, clear my throat. Taylon Green's averaging 29.7 attempts per game for 195 yards. He'll have more avenues to success here against San Diego State, but the strength of this San Diego State defense is their pass game. They're very giving against ground attacks. So Green has a pretty good floor, I think, but I sort of question the ceiling with his lack of rushing. Not for ability, just coaching staff-wise. The backfield here, Ashton Jeanty has been playing for a hurt George Holani. He's questionable here. If Holani returns, expect something close to a 50-50 committee. If not, expect Jeanty to handle 70-ish% of the backfield, with Jonbers Dubar coming in for change of pace. Their game last week got out of hand, so the split was closer. 15 carries to 10 in favor of Jeanty. The week prior against UCF, it was Jeanty at 24, Dubar at 5. In this competitive game, I would expect it to be a wider gap in favor of Jeanty, and right away, Jeanty becomes the best price-adjusted running back on the entire slate if George Holani is out. So just worth noting here. Also, what a pass game role Jeanty has. 17 targets through 3 games, 60% route share. before we move on, I mean, like, my goodness, he is game script independent. What a absolute smash running back play Genti is if Holani misses. Receiving game, very clear top three: Eric McAllister, Stephen Cobbs, Billy Bowens. I think the best price adjusted play of the group is Cobbs. McAllister's had a great start to the year, but target share is pretty narrow between these guys. 29% McAllister, 23% Cobbs. I think you can save a bit of money here. Also, I think Cobbs is just more talented on a larger sample. He's been the wide receiver one for a while now. I think we're kind of just looking at a very small sample and some noise here with McAllister ahead. Could be wrong on that, not sure, but willing to take some shots on Cobbs. Bowens, I think, is the worst option here. He has 47 receiving yards, just clearly the three, clearly inefficient. You want to get beyond Bowens, I would rather play the tight end Riley Smith, who has a very good route share at 65%, only 5 targets so far, but 3,400, you could luck your way into some pretty good production here. I don't mind Riley Smith as a punt play. What I will say is I think I prefer Jalen Maiden straight up price adjusted to Taylon Green. Touchdown expectations lower, but I think Maiden has a better floor. 29 attempts per game. That's essentially the same as Green. Slightly reduced efficiency through the air. Okay, that's expected, but way more rushing equity. 193 rushing yards this year. He's double the amount of scrambles, and Maiden already has 20 designed rush attempts in 4 games. We have Green at 8. You guys have a higher rushing expectation for Maiden over Taylon Green. I think that gives you a better floor. Ceiling, willing to hear arguments in Green's favor, but man, Maiden has a pretty good floor on this slate, and I think right now he's my second quarterback for cash if you force me to pick one. That's debatable. We'll see here how I develop this throughout the coming days, but it's Brennan Armstrong, and I think Maiden's in play for cash. Anyway, backfield's a 4-way committee. Jalen Armstead's pulling away a little bit, but Keenan Kristen right there. Martin Blake and Cam Davis sort of afterthoughts now. Willing to throw a couple darts here, especially with, like Keenan Kristen being the pass catching back. He has 14 targets so far this year. Route participation's almost at 50% for Kristen. You could see worse spots for him. The receiving game is finally fully healthy for the first time all year. Mark Redmond, their tight end, he is the lead in targets at 21, but Mekhi Shaw missed their last game. He had 8 targets the game prior. He'll be back here. Felipe Wesley has missed a couple games. He's now played in the last 2. He has 8 targets this year. And route participation for those 2 is pretty good. I think with San Diego State, you will have a receiver rotation with like Breon Penny and these players behind those top 2. But if I'm ranking them, Mark Redmond, Mekhi Shaw, and I think Felipe Wesley will be your top 3. The only wrinkle in here is Baylon Brooks had an 88% route share last game. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if Baylon Brooks jumps like a Felipe Wesley. Watch that. I think you could use him at 3,300. But there's a lot of really cheap guys here for San Diego State where I think you can definitely throw some darts, especially among the cheaper guys. Last thing, Jay Rudolph, their backup tight end left. So if you were worried about Mark Redmond, you shouldn't be. He'll be on the field every play. Last game, Air Force takes on San Jose State. 3.5-point spread. This is actually moving rapidly. By the time you hear this, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 5 points. Total is 47. Air Force runs the triple option. Zach Larrier has a case to be made for cash because of the rushing output, but he's expensive, 7,400. You save a lot of money by like going down to Maiden or something. He's not going to throw the ball much. He's averaging 3.3 attempts per game. When games are more competitive, you'll see Larrier run more. They crushed Utah State last week, so only 8 design rush attempts. Just 1 week prior, he was up at 19. So kind of volatile. Competitive game, you'll see Larrier rush more. I have no issues if you want to play him in tournaments in the Superflex. The running back position is where things get crazy. They fed Emmanuel Michel 28 carries last week. He was horrible on these carries. So this year he has 40 carries. Owen Burke has 39. Owen Burke has 219 rushing yards. Emmanuel Michel has 157. You look at Emmanuel Michel, 40 carries. John Lee Eldridge, 16. Emmanuel Michel, 157 yards. John Lee Eldridge, 156. The guy is horribly inefficient. But if he's going to get 28 carries, he's going to pay off value here. He's probably the safest running back playing this offense, but that's not without volatility. Just 1 week prior, Owen Burke led the team with 18 carries. He's the most efficient back. You can play him at 6,300. Coming into the year, John Lee Eldridge was expected to be the running back 1. He played in sort of a change of pace role to Brad Roberts last year. Now comes in as the 3, but efficiency dwarfs Emmanuel Michel. Could he see a spike week here and there? Certainly. 4,900 for tournaments. He'll offer elite leverage on this slate. Pass game, I don't have any interest in these guys. What I will say is to back John Lee Eldridge, like his route participation is 82%. Really good route participation for him. It's only led to 1 target. So, I mean, you're still throwing complete darts here, but if game script for some reason gets wonky here and Air Force has to throw more than you think, Eldridge is on the field a ton. San Jose State, Chevon Cordero comes in a little bit overpriced for me at 7K, but he's still definitely playable. There's good rushing equity for him. Already has 15 scrambles. They'll use him occasionally on design runs. He has 9 on the year. That's 3 per game. They've already played 4 games. So I think you could get to him. The backfield, we've seen Quayle, Conley sort of phase out in favor of Kyrie Robinson. Robinson got injured like right away this season. He's now back. Last week, he outcarried Quayle Conley 14-3. You look in the run game, or I guess I should say the pass game, it's kind of gone back in Robinson's direction. Last game, 3 targets, Quayle Conley at 1. So no issues playing Kyrie Robinson. Doesn't have quite the ceiling of some other guys because they throw the ball so much, but he'll be involved in every facet of the game. Receivers are extremely clear here. It's Nick Nash, Charles Ross, and Malachi Miller. Nash, the former quarterback, has some of the best metrics on the slate, honestly. 90% route participation. He's averaging 7.8 targets per game. That's a 23% target share. Does everything you'd want. Comes in with 31 targets. Charles Ross, the 2, has 20, who's ahead of Malachi Miller at 18. He's the 3. The last thing I'll say is Dominic Mazzotti returned from injury at tight end. He immediately popped into a really good route share at the expense of Sam Olsen. 3 games, 65%, 59%, and last game, 73% of the routes for Dom Mazzotti. Definitely going to be playing him for tournaments. That's a nice leverage spot as well. That'll do it for us today. If you guys have any questions, let me know. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. You can ask questions there as well. Otherwise, we'll be back for the main slate tomorrow. Let me know if you have any feedback for the video. But until next time, good luck, everyone, and we'll see you then.